Gather round, children, and I shall try to regale about a new class dice tutorial. Now let me tell you a tale about a time when I tried to make pretty dice for thee. Now, be nice in the comments. No vicious mockery. Today's video is for all you College of the Dice Goblin bards out there, and we're using Resin Obsession resin for this. Now, make sure you do your research on the safety tips for each resin that you're going to use. I'll link the safety data sheet for this one down below. But pretty much you can always know that you need a respirator that filters out vapors and fumes and nitrile gloves to protect yourself. So I'm going to start wearing those. But, of course, I am a Texas Aggie at heart, so I got to show my ring, and I'm going to miss my wife. I had to sacrifice her for that Avengers Infinity Stone set. So, you know, I miss her. I still got to show the wedding ring. Anywho, here I'm showing far too much resin. I'm making way too much, but it's because I'm experimenting with some other colors. So more just use the right amount. It takes about 40 milliliters per set. Everybody always asks, can you use other dyes besides just food dye? And yes, you're actually supposed to use other dyes rather than just food dye. So I'm using actual resin dye that was sent to me by Resin Obsession, as well as some Pearl X powder. And you can see right here, this is why you need gloves. I already got resin in my hands before we really even began. Now the dye I'm using says it's supposed to be mixed with part A before that gets mixed with part B. Make sure you read your instructions. I almost skipped that step, and that could have turned out disastrous. But now, let's move on to the piece de resistance that turns this into bard dice. It's this black fist, black single note glitter. It's essentially music note glitter. It's awesome. I found it on Etsy, and it's what made me want to do bard dice next after the druid dice that I made, right? Take a look at these little notes. That is what will turn this from any just random colored dice into some bard dice, so that's what I'm working with. If you want to know how to make the dice molds I'm using here, check out my sharp edge dice video. I didn't want to cover that in this one, or else it would just be far too long. I fill up the molds with just 1 or 2 music notes in the very beginning, which is good. We'll do that later, but we're gonna mess this dice set up, and I'll tell you why. It's okay, we'll learn from it. So I mix part A with part B. It's a 2-to-1 mixture, and this gives me some nice clear resin to work with. I'm going to use this as the base for one of the sets. I take the clear resin and I start filling it up into a pipette, and then I fill up about half of the mold with resin. That way I can still see the music notes in the bottom. If I used all opaque or non-transparent dye, then I wouldn't be able to see the music notes at all. So I really needed to do some transparency in these dice. Now, part of it I did clear for one set. The other set I do what I do with my other dice, and I did 1 drop of food coloring. It gets me a nice transparent yellow, and I'm going to mix that with the orange, and that also is a mistake that we'll get to in another minute. But here is the big mistake I do with this one. I said, all right, 2 music notes at the bottom, they'll stick to the bottom. I should put maybe 4 or 5 other music notes in now that I've put some resin in so that they float in the middle. Do not do this. This is far too many music notes. They will find their way around the mold on their own as it cures and as you kind of mix in the other resin. Stick with 2, maximum 3 music notes per mold, or else you're gonna get something that we'll go over here in a minute. I start mixing up the bright red or hunter orange. Again, this is like a vest that you would wear to not get shot out in the forest, right? But anyway, you could want this color, in which case that's great. It's not what I was looking for, but that's fine. I thought that using the yellow with this would provide a nice flame looking color. It didn't, but that's fine. I'm using this Interference Violent Pearl X powder because it gives this multi-tone color to it, and I think it looks awesome. It very much looks like a straight up pearl. I'm happy with it. I mixed that one with the clear resin, and then I put these on my pressure pot insert that allows me to have multiple sets going all at once. You can see some of my other experiments in there as well. I tighten it up, go ahead and lock on the air hose for my air pump and pressurize it. Now that I have them pressurized and fully cured, I can talk about the mistakes. So first of all, this looks like a straight up Halloween set, which it is October. That's not too bad. These kind of look like spiders, but we were going for music notes, so that's bad. We know from that, we learned, okay, only use a little bit of the music notes, and that'll get us the look that we need. You can see here, some of them came out okay, but it's still far too many in the sets. I actually really like this pearl color, so I ended up using that in the set that we're going to go back to. But for now, we're going to scrap these. Now, learning from our mistakes, which is something you should do, let's change things. I realized that orange is kind of not what I'm going for, though it said red, but a magenta, a pink, is much more bardic. It's kind of flamboyant and tale telling, right? And with that, I'm also going to mix some macro pearl of the Pearl X stuff. It'll make that color shine and glitter just like the pearl one will, and give it even more interesting flair and taste to it, right? So now, again, we've learned from it before, we're going to only take 2 pieces of notes and put them in the bottom and fill that up with clear resin. I actually fill up both sets with clear resin this time rather than trying to mess with the color. I wanted the magenta to shine as well as the violet kind of interference color, or interference violet, whatever it's called. Now I mix up another set of clear, and I'm going to put the interference violet inside of that clear one, mix it up, and we're good to go with the colors. And I didn't talk about this before for how you mix up the 2 colors once you already have clear ones in there, but essentially you jam it to the bottom, squeeze it out, and pull it up as you're squeezing. This will give you kind of a transition type effect. Or you leave it all the way down at the bottom, squeeze it all out, or leave it towards the top and squeeze it all out if you want kind of 2 parts, which is something that I did in some of mine. I kind of did a mixture here. I put it in my pressure pot insert, stick that in the pressure pot, go ahead and lock it up tight, put the air pump on, put the pressure, and then boom, we've got our brand new dice, which look much, much better. Honestly, tamer, which is good in this sense. It doesn't sound like tame as a bard thing, but it is good. We do have our sprues still kind of locked to the end of those, so we're going to get those off. But first I wanted to show what these dice look like, which is much more pink rather than red, and this looks awesome. You can see I left kind of a halfway transition between these two. I wanted the music notes to look like they're coming out of a smoke from a bard spell. You can see here I've taken some of the sprues and cut some of them off so you see what they look like. I like to do mine inside a small little garbage bag because the sprues tend to go flying. Cut it off till it gets about to this point, and then we can start using an X-Acto knife. Essentially, we're going to whittle away at the tip to get it as close to a finished product as possible with the X-Acto knife. It won't be perfect, but it'll get us ready to do the next stage, which is polishing and sanding. I have a video on that. I'll link it up there. It takes too long to show in here. Now, we've got some completed dice, and it's time to ink them. I'm using Auric Armor Gold. It's a nice bright gold. It's very happy, which I think is a bardic thing. Essentially, you can paint inside the lines and be all nice about it, or you can glob it over and wipe it away with your finger. Now, I get a lot of comments saying, I can still see a ton of paint on the edge of your dice. And yeah, you kind of can, but I'm filming in 4K and I'm essentially an inch away from the dice. I swear you can't see it in person. So it's worth it for me to just do it and do the wipe away, but it might not be for you. Now for the other set of dice, I'm using the Nagaroth Knight. It's a really dark purple and it gets me the color I want to where, bam, we have some completed Bard dice sets. I'm calling the pink or magenta set my College of Lore set, and I'm calling the white one my College of Valor set. Now let's look at the Valor set first. I think this is an awesome set. I think without the music notes, it could kind of be a cleric or a paladin set on its own, but the music notes really look like I cast a spell, I cast some sort of misty bard thing, and notes flew out of it because that's how my spells work. And I know there's going to be some questions on, is the dice weighted because of the powder? You can almost sneeze and this powder will fly away. There's essentially no weight to this at all. I will do further testing to double check that it's not weighted, but I can almost guarantee that it's not going to be. And the notes are definitely not weighted enough. They are plastic notes, they're not just paper, so they're pretty much the same density and weight that the plastic dice around them are. All in all, I think this is a really awesome looking set. Now let's look at the College of Lore set, which this one I was not expecting to like. I am not a pink fan, I can go ahead and say, but I do actually like this. There's something about it that really makes it stand out. The clear part to me is what I really like. The transition from the pink to this clear openness where the notes suddenly are is fantastic to me. I think that looks awesome. I think it almost looks like gemstones, which I don't know about you, but I know most bards tend to like gemstones, and turning into tales of this gemstone came from a long lost mountain, and turning something into a lored piece. And I think that the D10s and all these different numbers are great inspiration dice. If I grabbed one of these, I would know that this is my bardic inspiration dice, and I'd be happy to roll it no matter what class I was. But let me know what you thought down below. Were you inspired by my bardic dice, or were you Tasha's hideous laughtering me the whole time? Which is totally fine. I am absolutely ready to hear your opinions on them. I like them. I'm ready to tackle the rest of the Player's Handbook classes slowly. I'm just not sure of what order yet. So let me know in the comments down below what else you might want to see as far as dice are concerned. Consider subscribing if you want to be a dice goblin and join our ever-growing army of now 50,000 plus, which is crazy. Or check out my other content. I wouldn't have known that you all wanted to see more class dice like this had you not told me down below. And I do have some other stuff out there, so you may like seeing that. So thank you for watching. I sincerely appreciate it. I hope that you have just a fantastic week.